Does polygyny offer, okay, there are 20 more million women in the United States church than there are men. 20 million more. Some of those women want to be married. A lot of them. Okay. God gave us two commands. He gave us more than two commands, but one of the first commandments was be fruitful and multiply. Later, he tells you not to be unequally yoked with the unbeliever. Which of those two commandments do you want women to disobey because of this imbalance? Because it has to be one.
Well, it doesn't,
Sure, it
because
does.
there's, I
There's not
mean,
mathematically, it's impossible for them to marry another believer because there's not enough of them.
okay, so wouldn't the call then be to get more men into the church?
Yeah, that's great. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's
Haven't we been
go. Let's
trying?
go.
Haven't we all been
So,
trying? But I'm saying polygyny fixes. You asked me what problems polygyny fixes. It fixes that. It creates more husbands for these women.
what's the role of a husband?
Provide and protect. I would say, be the priest of your home. Lead them spiritually. There's not enough godly men to even do this for the women that want to be married.
Unpack that a little bit. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean by be the priest of your home? What do you mean by provide and protect?
Lead them spiritually closer to God. Like I'm dating this girl in the Netherlands or talking to this girl in the Netherlands, and I send her devotionals. I pray with her every day. I'm like, she said to me, she's like, I'm so much closer to God since I've known you. That's the role of a man. That's what the role of what a man should do for a woman is lead her closer to God. Also provide and protect. I think what happens is women give love by sexual exclusivity, but men don't show love that way necessarily. We show love by provision and protection. I mean, I know I can, when I was out whoring around, I could sleep with a girl and it meant nothing. It meant nothing. It was like getting my oil changed. It was literally meant nothing to me. Women don't have sex like that. They don't show love. They show love by sexual exclusivity, and they expect you to do the same thing when it's not necessarily in every man's nature, which is why I believe that God regulated polygyny. I mean, we have to ask, why did he do it? The other problem that it fixes is you got 1 in 3 children being raised in fatherless homes in the United States right now. They're being set up for failure. 85% of incarcerated individuals are from fatherless homes. Now, do you think a man would be more likely to take in a woman, a single mom, maybe she's past childbearing age, maybe she's a widow or just a divorcee? Is he more likely to take in a woman with children if she can be wife number 2 or 3 and that first one is younger, maybe she can have babies? Of
Who
course he is.
benefits in that situation,
The
though?
kids.
Like,
The
how?
kids.
How does this is where, like, I think you and I are going to fundamentally disagree, because I think the role of a husband and a father is to all these things that you said, be the priest of the home, provide, protect. But I think that there's deeper underlying things that come out of that. I think the role that a father plays in the children's life, how he treats the wife, will show the girls in the home what they should expect from a man. How he treats the wife will show the boys in the home how he should respect women in his life. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around a guy that's doing that with multiple families is leading a good example. So yeah, so how does a guy splitting his attention across multiple families create an ideal environment for anybody?
First off, what kind of man would you have to be in a polygynous marriage?
I don't
You
know.
got
I
to
don't,
be.
because I don't know any of them.
Well, I'm just
So you
saying,
tell
I would
me.
imagine you're going to, well, the woman's going to have to choose to say, okay, we live in the West. So she's going to have to choose to be with you. You're going to have to be the kind of guy that's just so unique and so special that she goes, this might not be ideal or even conventional, but this guy is so, I will not find another man like him. So she chooses to stay because of how unique you are and how good you treat her versus what men do anyway, the majority is they just go out and they cheat and they lie about it. They never have to level up to become the kind of man that could actually be honest about this. Number one. Number two, okay, so I was going to have this guy on my podcast. He's coming on next week, KGB, ex Green Bay Packer. I don't know if you know him, Kabir or whatever. He's a Pro Bowler, Green Bowl Packer Hall of Famer, and he's got 2 wives. And he's part of this. He's one of these black people that believe that the blacks are one of the lost tribes of Judah. They're Torah observant. Anyway, and he was telling me about his second wife and how it came to be. And it was a widow. She had 2 kids. She was part of the church that he goes to. He already had a first wife. His dad was sick. His pastor said, let me send somebody to help you. Sent the woman up there to help. And she was just so good to his dad. And she had these kids like 8 and 10 years old. And finally he's like, he didn't do it because he wanted to have sex with her. He could have sex with, he's an NFL player. He could have sex with all the women he wants. He wanted to cover her. And he wanted to provide for the kids. So when they sat down and told the kids, they were like, "Are you going to be our daddy?" They said they were all crying together. And I was like, "It's beautiful." It's like, isn't that the heart of God? When people say, "Oh, he shouldn't have married him," I'm like, it sounds like some healing on the Sabbath bullshit. like the Pharisees would come up with, is legalism. No, like it's not even, but first off, it ain't even in the Bible, which is what blows me away, is that we've been taught that it is, and it ain't. Jesus compared himself to a polygamist in the parable of the 10 virgins. We all heard that. Do you actually think Jesus would have compared himself to something that was sinful? Hell no. He wouldn't compare himself to a murderer or a pedophile in a parable. There's no way he would have done that. But he did.
Yeah, I'm not equipped here to have a biblical discussion around this topic with you, and I think I expressed that to you here at the beginning. But I guess my question is, Jesus lived over 2,000 years ago. You're 50 years old, so that's 40 of your lifetimes. Why hasn't there been scholars? Why hasn't, like, what is it about Rob that has this information that for 2,000 plus years it wasn't presented this way?
Well, first off, there is people out there that believe, and if you look in my comments, they're chiming in, and the thing is it's
I
so
mean, I'm not going to rely on people's comments on social
okay,
media
but I'm
as
saying
like
there's people,
scholarly evidence of what
really
actually.
smart people that went, got doctorates and stuff. So yes, but the mainstream belief is not that that it's accepted or approved of by God. And well, number one, it was stigmatized. Okay, there's a heavy stigma around it now. So even people that believe it, if they say anything about it, they get persecuted. So you can see people just shitting on me in the comments because I'm like presenting truth. I'm not even practicing. I'm just talking about it. And people are just so mad about it, with the women especially. And I believe that's because it subjugates them to the man. It makes the man the authority because he has the right to do it. And women do not have the right to do this according to the Bible. And they hate to hear that. But I believe what I've learned, at least, is that it was monogamy was a Roman practice, having the one wife, but it was about property. It wasn't about morality. And as Christianity spread, it permeated into Christianity and eventually became the accepted form of marriage. But that's where the word romantic comes from, is one man, one woman. It wasn't, but that wasn't if you look at God's chosen people, the Jews, they were called out by God, you know, to live separately from all the nations around them, and they were polygynous. It's well documented. Most of the patriarchs had multiple wives, and God never spoke negatively about it at all. You'll never find anything where He condemned or even said a negative word about it, for that matter. And we're led to believe that Christianity is the spiritual offspring of Judaism, and somehow it was right for them, and it became wrong for us somewhere along the line. I don't buy it. And in addition to, I'm just seeing how believing it played out in my life, and it wasn't good. Like I said, most men won't go through what I went through, and you want to know what it does to the world is they'll go out and they'll make babies outside of wedlock, or they'll end up a divorcee, and because of this monogamy only BS that we've been fed. So those are the problems that I think it fixes. I don't remember what question you asked me last, but I'm gonna just went down a tangent.
What what do you think about the nuclear family? Like, I think if you look across history, every great society, every great empire, that's been at the foundation of it. America being the greatest country of all time, like we are, a product of the nuclear family. Now, obviously, that there's been a lot that's happened in the last 40, 50, 70 years that has kind of begin to deteriorate that at its core. And I believe that's what's leading to a lot of statistics that you're sharing. I don't think those stats are because of monogamy. I think that there's multiple factors being driven out of the sexual revolution, birth control, all these other things, women empowerment, feminism, real destruction, almost communist Marxist type of agenda to destroy America. You can read this in books that were written in the 40s and 50s. You talk about Black Lives Matter, like one of their primary objectives was to destroy the nuclear family. So there's an attack against what I believe is the greatest institution of all time, which is nuclear family, husband, wife, children underneath one roof. So what are just your thoughts around that institution in and of itself? Because it sounds like you're not really a proponent of it. Like you think there's something wrong with it.
No, if you're saying nuclear family means husband and wife under one roof with the children, I absolutely believe in that. If you're saying it means one man, one woman as the standard for all time for marriage, I don't believe that. And that's what people push back on the Christians and say Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve. And I'm like, look, Moses wrote that and he didn't even believe it. He was a polygamist. Moses had two wives, Zipporah and the Ethiopian. So you're telling me the guy that wrote the one man, one woman, one flesh, all that wrote the law, spoke with God face to face, that wrote the laws, the penalties for committing adultery. He wrote them. You're telling me that he was wrong and he just disregarded God's rules and went ahead and married two women, and God never said anything to him about him while he was leading God's people? Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that Moses wrote the first book of Genesis.
Well, no, Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Moses, it's every. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I think that
feel
there's
like
different scholars that can kind of debate that a little bit. Once again, I'm not here to have a biblical conversation and debate with you.
I believe in the nuclear family. I do believe. I think that this puts more men. I believe this puts more husbands, wives, and children under the same roof. A lot more, because imagine all the men, the Christian men out there, if they wanted to go out and take in another woman to cover her, because there's not enough godly men to do it, and be a father to those children. They could do it if this was decriminalized, or even decriminalized, and maybe the stigma was lifted off of it somewhat. Because people just think sex, sex, sex. They're like, you just want to have more sex. I'm like, I can go out and have all the sex I want right now. Why would I complicate things with marrying someone? That's ridiculous. Now I have to take care of her. It's not about sex. It's about providing covering to the women that need to be covered. Paul said in the Bible that widows under 60 should be remarried. Who's going to remarry a 55-year-old widow? Like, there might be a few men out there to do it, but if you're looking at the majority of men, there ain't enough of us to do it. So those women don't get protected. They have no family. They have no man to take care of them. As shit gets worse in the world, they're going to need somebody to look out for them more than likely. If they have kids, the kids got no father. I mean, I believe that monogamy only creates a cesspool. I'm not saying that people should do it, because I think but I think that men have the right to do it biblically. And I think in some cases it would be very beneficial. I think the reason that the marriage rates are so low right now, with there's historical lows, 5 out of every 1,000 people are getting married right now. Men are not seeing value in the institution of marriage anymore. So what are we going to do to make marriage more attractive to men? Because they're not finding it attractive. I believe that if you said, hey, look, polygyny is okay with God, if you decide somewhere down the road that you want to take a second wife or a third wife, you're allowed to do it. I think they'd be a lot more likely to get
How does
married. I
that
know
make
I
anything more attractive? Like if a man doesn't see the value in providing, protecting, being a man of honor, respecting, denying himself, sacrificing himself for one woman, what's attractive about doing that for multiple women? So I don't that's a hard sell there. Is if I don't buy into doing it for one, why would I be able to do it for two?
because you're not waiting for that one girl that hits every checkpoint on your list. Like, I met girls that I loved enough that I would have married them if I had known that I wasn't going to be trapped, for example.
So marriage is a trap, is what you're saying. Do you think that perception has skewed your reality and perhaps maybe put you in the position that you're
I don't
in?
think it's, I
Well,
don't think it's,
not judgment on
yeah.
that question, Rob, but to hear you say that selecting a woman to spend the rest of your life with is trapping you,
Well, what I'm saying is,
I
I
don't
think,
really
well,
know if
let me ask you
I
this.
don't really
Why,
know if
why
that's
are men not marrying? Because they're not. So they're thinking something about it, right? I don't think
what
that
men
that's
are we talking about? I want to talk to
well,
about
the
Rob
men,
and
the
Frank.
95, the 90, whatever the percentages of men that aren't getting married.
I know a lot of married men.
But the marriage rates are the lowest.
The vast majority of men that I know are married. Many of them are happy, and many of them are going through issues that I don't see polygamy or polygyny being the solution for. I don't think women,
You don't know that polygyny wouldn't be the solution because you've never done it. Neither have I. We're speculating.
but we do know that monogamy works because
Well, do
it's
we?
yeah, I think we do.
If you look at the way things are in the world, I would say it doesn't work very well. I mean, you have a very high chance of failure, 56% under monogamy only. You have rampant
That's a recent
fornication.
statistic based off of a sexual revolution that I already talked about. I
I
believe
agree.
is
I
stemming those
agree.
problems. Up until
100%.
1960, the divorce rate was what, 4%, 5%? So we had 200 years of just historical data here in the US of it actually being a very proven solution. We can look at every other great empire, every other great nation that has been built upon that framework as well.
I'm not saying that those aren't factors. I agree 100%. The sexual revolution
So you can't say that monogamy doesn't work because the historical data proves that it actually does work. There's no historical data proving that polygyny works.
when you say it works. How are you defining that, or like how are you measuring that? But works in what way?
Well, I mean, to not get too off topic here, I believe America is the greatest country of all time. I believe that prior to many of the struggles and challenges that we're dealing today, if you go back 40, 50, 60 years, we had a thriving nation. We had a nation built upon where a husband could go out and provide for a family. It was a single income household. Mothers were in the house. They were homemakers. They were raising families. They were raising children. We were producing great leaders in men. We were producing empowering women. that then went on to become other nurturing type of mother. So if we go back 60 years in time and look at what America was, I say we need to bring that back because that's the greatest example of a nation, and that was built off of the foundation of a nuclear family, a father and a mother raising children in one home, single household or single income household. The father goes out, works, provides, and you have a homemaker, a provider taking care of the children at home. I think we can just use the case study of America as the most recent example as to how it works.